Hello. Thank you to everyone tuning in today, including, of course, the graduating class of 2021. It is such an honor to be here with you all. Of course, when I say here, I actually mean here in Chicago, while you're there. Some with me here in Chicago, some in Pittsburgh, and others scattered across the country and around the world. But in the more metaphorical sense of here, after the longest year, and certainly not the one you imagined when you first stepped foot on campus, you are finally here, ready to meet this moment with hard-earned resilience, agility, and positivity. Because as you all know, perhaps better than anyone, this past year has forced every one of us to rethink just about everything. How we connect with and support one another, how we interact with the world around us, and how we use technology to do both. What better example than this unconventional commencement in front of our devices rather than all together on the lawn where we'd like to be. I know it's disappointing, but take it from someone who sat through her own graduation ceremony in 95-degree heat, not all rites of passage are everything they're chalked up to be. That said, I do think the hassle and hardship, and yes, even the heartache of this last year have given way to incredible growth. Even as the world stood still, you found ways to affect change and to create progress. You are more prepared than anyone for what comes next. Not only that, you are the architects of what comes next. So as you venture out to next jobs or first jobs, my advice is simple. Remember what you've learned this year. From your professors, from your classmates, from yourselves, and maybe most importantly, from Zoom. Seriously, Zoom. Because this year has made clear what I've seen throughout my entire career, and what you all, by education or innately or both, know to be true. That technology is at its best when it reflects humanity. In the business world especially, which sits at the intersection of art and science, statistics and society, as Tepper students, you're sitting at that intersection too, though you're hardly sitting still. You're building a business world that embraces all technology has to offer, while taking care to mitigate its unintended side effects. A business world in which innovation isn't an end, but a means to improve the lives of those around you. And a business world in which change is the only constant, and the pace of that change is growing faster by the day. In a world that for the majority of the past year has convened over Zoom. And love it or hate it, talking over screens has taught us all important lessons about how to make positive change, about how to be a good collaborator, and how to be a good person. I'd like to share 5 of those lessons now. Number 1, click on gallery view. Which is to say, acknowledge all the stakeholders in the room rather than focusing only on the loudest voice. Tepper's emphasis on collaboration is likely what drew many of you to this place. But rarely has there been a case study as powerful as this past year, where we saw different leaders, organizations, and industries working together to get people tested and inoculated, to keep businesses open and running, to curb misinformation, and to keep the public informed. Like how nonprofits collaborated with major supply chain companies to create equitable access to PPE and COVID-19 tested communities. Or how the pharmaceutical industry collaborated to produce vaccines in record time. Or how the business and arts communities have come together to curb vaccine hesitancy through a new ad campaign, one I'm honored to support as a sponsor, and a little more glamorous than my normal gigs. And most recent is how businesses and nonprofits have come together to bring much needed aid to India. We've learned the challenges are far too big and the stakes far too high for any one person or company or industry to go at it alone. So invite new and unusual collaborators into the room, stay in gallery view, and listen to what each of them has to say. Okay, number 2, keep the camera on. Meaning, be transparent and accountable, certainly for the big things. This year, many companies, including my own, released a transparency report around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It helped us identify gaps in our own understanding. It forced us to be honest about our progress. And it invited people to hold us accountable. It's just as important to be honest about the stuff that might otherwise go unnoticed. The moments when you've made a mistake, the times when you're, having a hard time. Which brings me to the other part of keeping your camera on, which is assuming and expecting positive intent when someone else doesn't. Recognize that they're probably with their kid or having a rogue dog interrupting their meeting or just having a bad day. Because there will come a time when your lunch is burning or your shirt is stained or your city dog, and this is a true story, is taken off leash in the countryside for the first time and gets quilled by a porcupine. And you'll need to go off camera to dequill him. And you'll want that same kind of grace offered to you. Which brings me to number 3. When lunch isn't burning and your dog isn't fighting wild animals, remember to unmute yourself. Speak courageously, even when it's hard or intimidating, especially when it's hard or intimidating. Sometimes that means posting on Twitter, delivering a speech, or penning an op-ed. But more times than not, it means having tough conversations with those you care about, coming in with an open mind and a clear argument. The fact that my own organization and I personally were so vocal this year about the injustices we saw, about what we need to address them, is a result of people, many of them just out of college or grad school, tirelessly and fearlessly pushing me and us to be bolder, to be better, presenting statistics and stories that illuminate a problem and offering real, tangible solutions. Whether those solutions are about something as macro as social justice or as micro as a topic in routine business conversation. As you enter or re-enter the workforce, please, please be those people. Because we need your voices, not just when you're in the C-suite or when you feel like you're ready or when the timing feels exactly right. We need them now. But let me be clear. I'm not suggesting you always be the loudest voice in the room. There are times that require respectful outspokenness and times that require quiet attention. So our 4th lesson, know when to mute yourself. I started my career on Wall Street in the 90s, helping financial institutions adopt new technologies. As a consultant who was not the deepest technologist on the team, as I was a quant by background, I surrounded myself with the real experts. I tried to absorb every single piece of information and advice they had to give me. I began to rise in the ranks, and that wasn't because I'd become the best technologist. No, I succeeded because I was the best listener. 3 decades later, and I still don't know all the answers about technology, about how to be a good leader and a good ally, which is why these days, this speech notwithstanding, I find myself talking less, not more. So mute yourself. Listen louder than you speak. Admit when you don't know something. Ask people, what else? What else am I missing? What else can you tell me? What else can I do? And then do the work, without fanfare, without performance, without ego. Finally, and this is the most important one, know when it's time to log off. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is who you're with at the end of the day. It may be hard to put that belief into practice. You very well might find yourselves working with people in different time zones, with different cultural expectations around personal time, or with different definitions of how life and work intersect. There will be moments when you bend to those expectations, when you wake up early and stay up late for the good of the team. But that should be the exception, not the rule. Most days you should close your computer or leave the office and do what gives you energy. For me, that's going on an outdoor adventure with my sister, or baking a treat for a friend, or simply curling up with my husband and dog with a good book or one of our favorite Netflix shows. Whatever form it takes, prioritize the family and friends, teachers and teammates who got you to this moment. Because this, right now, it's a moment worth celebrating. We're here, together, apart, at the end of a long 14 months, and depending on your academic journey, a long 2 or 4 or 6 or 10 years. And we're here, together, apart, as the world opens up, just in time for you to head out into it. So log off, but don't forget everything you've learned in this year of being logged on. Within the workplace and beyond it, invite unlikely voices into the conversation and make sure you listen to what they have to say. Offer your own voice and your own big, bold ideas, your attention and your openness and your willingness to say, I don't know. Be kind to each other and kind to yourself. And don't be afraid to, well, switch things up. Congratulations, class of 2021.